Hello, guys. Welcome to the brand new episode of The Film Angle. My name is Kris.
And I'm Alex.
It's a brand new week, Alex, and that gives us really good excuse to talk about the three BFI movies that we've been watching. We usually reserve it to one, maybe two maximum, but we've been doing our homework, and I actually say we've got more than three, but we're talking about three today because we want to save some in the bank for future episodes. But yeah, we're hot on it and really excited to talk about some really great movies today.
Yeah, man, it's been really good to have a bit of time and catch up with a chunk of these. And I think we're in like a really interesting part of the list now. We're about to go over the 50 mark
Mhm.
in the actual list. But in terms of our blind spots, we've probably seen more of the front end of the films than we have the back end of the list. So I think
Yeah,
we're gonna start
accelerating.
seeing some. We're going to start speeding through the list and hopefully seeing some really incredible films, which I'm really excited for. But yeah, these latest three have been great, have been great. So looking forward to getting into it with you.
Should we just get right into it? The
Let's
first
just
one?
get in.
Yeah.
Let's
No.
get into the Russian propaganda.
Well, that's the thing. We're going to talk about Battleship Potemkin, which came out in 1925, directed by Sergei Eisenstein. What a name. This is, as you said, a propaganda film from the
Mm,
20s that is a dramatization of an actual event that happened regarding the Battleship Potemkin that really started a mutiny on board this major vessel after the brosh, which is this like beet soup. I'd never heard of it, but it's apparently a really big thing that goes centuries back in Eastern European. It's a big dish, but they were serving the brosh on board, and the meat that they were bringing on, the provisions, was rotten and maggot ridden, and the crew they said we're not going to eat that, which is kind of yeah, as the viewer you're watching that and you're like yeah, that you probably shouldn't. And the high admirals on board and the doctors declare it good to eat, and it starts a whole big mutiny. The admiral and all his captains below decide to let's open fire on on all of the people who denounce and don't want to eat the soup. And obviously that starts a big thing, and they take over the ship. They throw everybody who is on the captain's payroll and the admiral's payroll and throw them overboard, and they start cruising the Battleship Potemkin around the seas, and building up some cultural followers and starting a mini revolution over the course of a week. I think that's kind of a major summary of kind of how the movie goes. But obviously, this is a propaganda piece, but it's hard to watch it through that lens when it's something that's 100 years ago. We
yes.
don't necessarily have that context. I learned about the Japo-Russo war in A levels in school, and that was kind of a part of the thing. But I'd never heard of this story before, and although it's a propaganda piece, it's very rousing, it's very involving, and it's probably the best shot propaganda war film ever. It's kind of claimed to be.
Yeah, it probably is the best shot propaganda film. I also am trying to like rack my brain for like other propaganda films. I can't 100% remember. Or like
Admittedly, that is true.
is the scene in Inglorious Bastards where Hitler's watching the propaganda film made about the sniper.
Yes, yes.
That's all I can think about right now. I'm trying to think. I probably have, or like haven't known that I'm watching a propaganda film as well.
Yes, the
But I
the
guess
hero the hero Frederick Zoller, who single handedly defeats about 100 men in the sniper tower. Yeah.
that's all I can think about in terms of propaganda films. But who knows? But yeah, I mean, it is interesting. When I compare it to other films that we've seen in the 20s, they are kind of comedies, and they are very kind of silly and humorous. Mainly Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. From films I've seen from that era and films that we've seen from this list. So to see something that is this kind of
Mhm.
rousing war film, revolution film that is also trying to recreate actual real life events, which is really interesting as well because I mean that must have been something like a new form of cinema, like a recreation. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe not, but for me, that I find that quite interesting. That they're trying to recreate like past events. um, which is something you see a lot of now, and we've spoken about a few films recently doing it. And you're going to see it again soon with Napoleon.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. Well, yeah, yeah.
even though that takes some creative justice, and and this film itself takes some creative liberties. The sequence on the steps, the most famous sequence, is not actually something that actually happened.
Yes,
But yeah, I mean, the whole film is this kind of rousing, um, like I said,
call to arms.
it's a call to arms. It's kind of a war film. It kind of
Mhm.
reminded me a little bit of the opening of Athena, last year's film.
It's
Uh,
going to be the bar now, isn't it? For opening rising scenes in a film is
but
a high bar.
when that calls for revolution, that kind of big kind of
Yeah,
revolutionary action movie. The only thing that Athena has going for it that this doesn't is kind of like characters. Like you don't really,
sure.
like the film is very much. I mean, it's a silent film, so it's very difficult to. Well, I say that. Nah, Buster Keaton kind of did it. Like you can
But
single out
this is
one
more like a
person and follow them, but
documentary
it
in the
is
style of a film. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's a docu style
Hmm.
film, and yeah, no, I did really like it. The imagery is amazing. The kind of the sets and just kind of grandiose of it all is quite something.
Well, I think it's just so hard not to get wrapped up in it because the people that they are being oppressed by and overrunning are just not they're just despicable, acts of inhumanity that you can't help but being wrapped up in their plight and want to see these guys succeed. Obviously, doing the Wikipedia research because we're such in-depth researchers and
Yeah,
Wikipedia is the most reliable source in the world and has never been wrong. Reading up about the events of the Potemkin and what happened with the crew there, this film does, apart from take its creative liberties with some of the civilians and the massacres are on the streets, it does seem to follow the events pretty strictly, actually, considering that's a 75-minute runtime. It does go through the events pretty well, and having that big rousing score by Edmund Meisels really kind of a part of it too. You really kind of get wrapped up in the whole event. Some of the shots of the ship from its exterior, seems like in the 20s everybody was just all about the stunts.
yeah,
I think this film does a really good job of its camera and kind of setting the establishment, how tactile it is, also just kind of getting this sort of early Mad Max vibe with the whole ship, how it moves through the water, and there's a lot of movement in a film that is quite limited by its budget and the time that it's set in. That's why when you're watching something like a Buster Keaton or a Charlie Chaplin film or any kind of film from the 20s, really, it was always so reliant on the performer to really kind of bring the magic of the screen across. Obviously, the camera was so limited and can't do the things it can do now. So, it really called for people who were so creative that to do such physical things with their bodies. And here we got people chucking themselves off the ship and falling onto ropes and nets and everything, and it's pretty incredible. I thought about the scene with the stairs where everybody in the town who is siding with Potemkin and coming and giving them oil and fuel and food. And obviously, the army comes on and mows them down like nothing. Babies, mothers, children. That's probably where the propaganda element is coming into it. It reminded me of the Untouchables. Did you think that they stole that from this movie where the baby is going down the stairs and the pram and the mother's running after the baby? That's such a famous part of the Untouchables that even got parodied in Naked Gun years later. And I wonder if it's like that was the first time that sort of, cliche or trope was done in a film before. But I thought it was worth noting.
gotta be. I mean, the Odessa step sequence is so famous. Like even I had seen that sequence played out, having not seen this entire film. I was aware of the sequence. I was aware of the shots of the gargoyles, like the lions, looking as if
Yes.
they are kind of um like horrified at what they're watching and witnessing. Like I saw these scenes in film school, and like there's no way that wasn't influenced by that. No way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's not hard not to get caught up in the moment, but that's what this movie does. And I think it's got a singular note, this whole movie, and that is the vibe of it. It is this sort of getting wrapped up in this event, and it also it's their ultimate demise by the end of by the end of whatever happens here, these guys aren't going to get away with it, and they didn't as well. Um, a lot of them were executed when they were rounded up or killed before, or it was a really big, it's Russian history, so we shouldn't really be surprised by that. But it was really fascinating to watch, and I thought it accomplished a lot that well, a lot of filmmakers still can't do today, and it just proves that in the 20s that these guys were getting it done, and it's probably the oldest, could be the oldest foreign film I've seen.
Definitely for me. I was looking back through my letterboxd, and I mean, I think some of the oldest films I've ever seen happened this year. So I think it was Sherlock Junior. I think because I think Sherlock Junior was the same year, right?
Yes, 25. Yeah,
Oh yeah. So this was 26, I think.
Potemkin. I thought it was
Oh,
25.
have I got that wrong? I might have got that
Letterbox is telling me 25.
wrong. Okay. Let's. Oh, yep. So is Wikipedia, the the two most factual websites on the internet.
Maybe the Keaton one is 24.
Maybe. Who knows? Who
I can
knows?
tell you the answer right now, but it'll take 10 seconds, and I'm already
Yes.
eating into that time.
Whatever. Yeah, for me, I very much like Battleship Potemkin. Did I find it a little bit kind of like because we just weren't following much? It was kind of dragging a little bit, but not nothing crazy. For
I mean, it's
me,
75 minutes. It's not long.
yeah, sure. I think it's tainted by the fact that it is one of those kind of like film school films. Like you need to have seen this to understand cinema, and
Interesting. I guess I didn't have that relationship because I didn't go to film school, but I guess if you come in with that and you've seen scenes from this film already, that can kind of stir the pot a little
yeah, so for me, it was like, "Oh, okay, here's the homework film." I
You say that
probably
about half the movies on here in
I should have
private.
watched this 10 years ago. Whoops. Sorry for not doing it at the time. But yeah, no, I can see why, and obviously there's a lot of stuff to do with montage here, and how this was maybe one of the first kind of uses of montage, and how that inspired films like Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, all those kind of things.
Well, you can currently stream Battleship Potemkin on the BFI channel if you have it. It is available on Amazon. I know Alex subscribes to it, so yeah, no, you can catch it on there. It should be pretty easy to catch because these movies are so old now that they're kind of coming public domain, and you can get your hands on these things even on YouTube pretty easily.
Yeah, yeah.
Next
Um,
film, Alex.
the next film. Yes, so the next film we're talking about is The Apartment, and I just want to preface this by saying this is not a blind spot for me. And Chris, I was very surprised to find this being a blind spot for you because I thought this is a film that's right up your street. In fact, you are the person who introduced me to the director of the film, Billy Wilder,
Yeah.
by saying, "Hey, I know the type of films you like. You should watch Sunset Boulevard." And Sunset Boulevard is one of my favorite films of all time now. And from watching Sunset Boulevard, I then watched quite a few Billy Wilder films afterwards. And yeah, this is another one of his really really good films.
Yeah, I have no excuse for this.
You don't.
I have no excuse. Before recommending Sunset Boulevard years ago, I've always been aware of The Apartment. I know it's a big movie. Again, I think because it was always on TV when I was a kid on the background, I had absorbed parts of it so much that I was always like, I'll get around to that watching it properly one
Yeah.
day. When you get that sometimes and you just don't get around to it. But I'm so silly because like Sunset Boulevard, like Some Like It Hot. The 7 Year Itch is okay. We discussed that quite recently.
Yep.
Double Indemnity, like those movies. I fucking love this. I there's the E on the Spotify warning. This is an incredible film. I fell so in love with this. I think Wilder just was so sharp and witty. He was probably just the most intelligent writer of his time. He manages to just weave these really interesting, really funny characters. Like this is a laugh a minute movie, but it's also laced with a real melancholy, and a hopefulness, and just like by the end of it, you can't help but being uplifted. It's like with the first time you watch It's a Wonderful Life, and you're like, oh my god, movies are so beautiful. It feels like
Yeah.
rediscovering your new favorite Christmas movie, even though Christmas hasn't really got anything to do with the apartment.
It's also a
Um,
very adult movie as well. So maybe the child version of you who was
mm.
absorbing bits and pieces off the TV, maybe it's a good thing you didn't watch
Yeah, but as I can't.
it.
Where's Scooby Doo? I can't see him anywhere here. Um,
This deals with like adultery and suicide,
boring.
yeah, drug overdoses, but is also hilarious. Like you said, it's like that good mix of being really witty and really funny, but being able to tackle some hard hitting subjects in a really kind of mature way and in a way that seems quite modern, even
Yeah.
despite the time. Like you think back to 1960s and you don't think people would be very open minded about any of this, but maybe that's wrong. Billy Wilder was, but yeah, I mean, The Apartment is yeah, it's a really wonderful film, really wonderful.
And I think the thing that really cements it, not just everything that Wilder is doing in terms of the staging, the sets, the costumes, the camera work, everything in this movie is kind of near perfect. But the central dynamic, introduced by Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine, CC Baxter and Fran Kubelik, it's what brings this movie all together. And I think Jack Lemmon just has that similar quality that James Stewart had of the time.
Yes.
They were both the likable everyman that really kind of exude this real sense of like a really good human being who he's just down on his luck. And after the movie, I was so taken by his character. I fell so in love with his character that, and I know Jack Lemmon, but I'd never really delved into his history, so I read up about him afterwards. Just make sure he didn't do any nasty stuff. He wasn't like everybody else and was a terrible person in real life. Apparently, Alex, full disclosure, apparently he was actually quite a nice guy.
Okay, thank
So
God,
it
thank
makes me
God.
feel a
That
lot better.
can't be said for the next film we're talking about, but
Oh no.
we'll leave that for in 10 to 15 minutes.
But I can't remember the last time I actually looked up an old movie, the guy's actual personality, because I was so invested in his character, and I wanted to keep that on the pedestal that the movie gave me by the end of it. This guy is. We didn't even talk about the plot of the movie, a classic mistake of this podcast. So he plays Bud Baxter. He's this kind of minor clerk who's kind of trying to go up in the ranks in this big, massive New York business. He on During the evenings, he lends his apartment out to executives in his office, or people, anyone higher than his rank really, to come and have affairs and take women in from the office or outside of the office into and have soirees. And he comes in intermittently to top up their drinks or the groceries, and leaves them the key, and in exchange he's kind of getting little promotions here and there. He's also quite taken with Shirley MacLaine's character, Fran, who is the elevator lady, and they
Mhm.
have a lot of really like nice little moments in the movie at the start. He falls in love with her, but it turns out that she is the mistress of the head executive, the CEO of the company, played by Fred McMurray, um, who is an asshole, like literally the worst guy ever. So it becomes a sort of love triangle without anybody kind of knowing they're a part of it. In a way, there's a lot of games being played here, and yeah, it's and the whole time we're rooting for Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine to actually get together, and this Fred guy to get out of the picture, because he's not a
Yes.
nice guy.
He's
she
not a
fall
nice guy.
No, she falls victim to you know um suicidal tendencies and overdosing because of his, he professes his love to her, but then he goes straight back to his wife and promises that they'll get married, but then never,
Yes.
he just completely leads her on this whole
And
movie.
apparently this is a thing that has happened before multiple times,
Yes,
but
to
also
other women in the office.
you
Yeah,
can't blame him. He's got a very manly face. There's something about him. He has a lot of authority. I was
he
swept up
does.
by him. I like looking at him.
He has the most amazing eyebrows. I will say, ever.
Yeah,
Um, he's it's that proper noir 50s Hitchcockian like look to him. You know, he looks like he just walked off the set of Key Largo. You know, he's got a great face. Um,
and a nice smile.
and a nice smile, but he captures this. He's not a comical villain in this. He is just so like benevolent to his own behavior.
Yes.
He's just a kind of a creature of his own rotten cycle. And even when he's inflicting pain on others, you know, very obviously as an audience member, he's completely oblivious to it, and it makes it even more hurtful that Shirley MacLaine's character Fran is just so she's so invested in this romance. She's so naively hopeful that he will, you know, turn around and they'll get married and it'll be perfect. And he's just like completely not interested, and and it just makes it even more heartbreaking. If he was violent, I think the movie would be less interesting. I think if he was just like outwardly, you know, nasty, it would not be as
Mm,
interesting as this sort of unrequited, you know, half-assed attempt by his part. And obviously, we're just rooting for Jack Lemmon because he is just a sweetheart. He is having no luck. He's very accident prone. He's kind of like a modern Chaplin character in a way, in
yeah.
that sensibility. But
He
he is,
reminded me of Boyle from Brooklyn Nine-Nine
yeah,
in, like,
he
mannerisms and facial features, and I guess, like, the guy just couldn't get a break, and that's always your lovable hero, the guy who just can't get a break is a great trope.
exactly. I noticed like you were talking about, you know, kind of the male gaze in this movie and also the sort of derogatory objectification of women in the workplace too. You know, one
Yes.
of his co-workers that he gives his apartment key to at times, you know, he comes out the elevator and you know, he pinches Shirley MacLaine on the bum and everything, and you know, and there's a lot of this very um aggressive, you know, molestation by today's standards, but
Yes,
flirtation in
yeah,
those
yeah.
days. And it's kind of, you think that, okay, don't Wilder go into this frame where we're going to see Baxter Lemon's character participate in his behavior too. No, he doesn't participate in any of this. He stays kind of pure this whole movie, and it just makes it so much nicer to see this character can exist in a Hollywood movie from 1960, surrounded by all these sort of gargantuan like monsters that just want to consume and spit out women. And yeah, I fell in love with it.
Yeah, I guess it also comes, like, both ways in the fact that he finds it really difficult to stand up against any of the guys and their bad behavior, especially, Fred McMurray's, character. Like, he is constantly taking the blame for things, apologizing for things that he didn't do. He's trying to keep up appearances for the guys around him rather than himself. Yeah, it makes him a very interesting character, but again, one that you want to root for, but also kind of slap and say like, "You're better than this. You're
Yeah.
better than these guys."
Lemon has to pretend for 20 minutes of this movie that he has a cold because he was like locked out of his apartment for like an entire winter's night, and he gets a cold the next day, comes in and he's got this whole voice going on, and
Yeah.
it's like, that's how hard is it to act like you've
Did
got a cold
did
but
I
be
read
funny at the same
somewhere?
time?
Did I read somewhere that he actually had a cold?
If he did, I wouldn't be surprised because it was probably the best cold acting I've seen ever.
Obviously heightened,
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah.
Also, another thing I read about this film was, so the scenes within the business, and it just looks like there's just millions of office
Sea of
desks
typewriters, yeah.
everywhere, sea of typewriters. It looks like the most kind of boring, bland place to work, despite the fact that their Christmas parties are pretty raunchous. But the way they created that was it a forced perspective? So it was paintings in the background and children in suits. So that
No way.
Yes, yeah, children in suits, so they could fit more people into the frame and
It
have that
worked.
kind of height difference and stuff.
It worked honestly because I did feel like when I was watching, because I was so fascinated by the image of these typewriters like going down. I would loved actually just the symmetry of the office environment, although it's kind of, you know, trying to garner a negative environment to the viewer. But when you're watching, you can't help but be mesmerized by the whole, you know, kind of. It's kind of reminded me of uh a matter of life and death, where we get these like vast vistas of these
Yeah.
pretty symmetrical images. But here we just get like you get this curvature almost in the office because it goes on for so long. And you're right,
Yeah.
but I did never kind of thought it looked fake. I never my eye watching
No,
this in
no.
4K still did not think, oh, there's children in suits over there. That's a map
No,
painting.
no, it's really well
That's incredible.
done. Really creative and really well
It
done.
it reminds me of like Howard Hawks, one of my favorite directors, used to do that as well. He was very clever in Rio Bravo, a film that I love dearly. He made the whole town that the movie is set in. The whole town in Rio Bravo was a sixth smaller scale than it would normally be. So he did it so that everybody on screen, all these main characters, felt larger than life. But when you watch the movie, the sets don't look small. It just, but it gives that appearance that everybody in this film jumps out the screen, and it's like you don't get that anymore.
No, that's yeah, these really interesting details that somebody's had to think about in order to kind of convey certain images. Yeah, it's really good.
So, and then by the end, we get this Shirley MacLaine finally comes to her senses and comes running to Jack Lemmon after realizing that he's we know where this is going. We know that they're going to end up in love at the end of this, and we're just waiting for the moment to happen. And the journey's so good. But this beautiful shot of her running down the street to the apartment, it reminded me of George James Stewart's character at the end of It's a Wonderful Life, having that realization. But this beautiful tracking shot of her head, I don't even know how Wilder did it. It's so stunning, and by the end of it, I was just like, this credits rolled. I turned to Laura and I was like, I fucking love that. That was I love. I'm a sucker. Old Hollywood 50s 60s movies are just I'm hook line and sinker for them. And this one was no different. It's another 5-star Billy Wilder film for me, and yeah, I can completely see why it's on this list. Loved it.
Yes, yeah, it is brilliant. It is brilliant. I think it doesn't reach 5 stars for me because this is the second time I've watched it. I've had the same criticism both times,
I think you
and I
liked
must
it
say
more.
I loved it more on the second watch. I really did. But it does what the first hour is the most exciting hour, and the second hour where he's caring for Fran is a lot more kind of like it's more somber. It's not as funny because we are dealing with themes of suicide and stuff like that. And so like but it does like compared to how fast paced the start is, it slows down a little bit and there are moments where I'm like, this isn't as good as the first half. Like this hasn't
Hmm.
captured me as much. But it is
Dr.
a really good
Dreyfus
kind of
though,
end.
he's great.
Yeah, yeah, like they're all good. They're all good, you know? Like I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying like I always find that second act to be just and it's still really good. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm only rating this 4.5 stars on Letterboxd. It's still a very good rating. I think. I just find
Not good enough.
latter half just slightly drags a little bit, but not enough to turn it into a bad film. Just each time there are moments where my patience is like, "Come on, next bit," because I love watching these characters, but I like seeing the hijinks. You know?
Yeah. I think you're right. I think when Wilder's full tilt funny, that is kind of when you're having the most fun. And the tone does change sort of in the middle while still maintaining that humor all the way through. Um, but yeah, this is great. It's such a simple premise, and they keep it going for 2 hours and 5 minutes,
Mm,
which is great. Performances are amazing. I think people who are listening to this list who maybe kind of struggled to get into some of the movies that we talk about because there are a lot of heavy ones on this list. I think I could recommend this one to anybody, and you will have a really good time with it. So yeah, please catch the apartment. It's available on loads of streaming services. So yeah, catch up
catch up, do it, catch up with it.
now.
Yeah, I do think Billy Wilder's one of the greatest directors. He's in my top five for sure.
I didn't know he lived so long. Like he was born in 1906, dies in 2002, and this feels like a guy who should have died like at the age of 50. He looks like so. He just looks like a chain smoker. He kind of
Eh?
reminds me of like John Ford in that way, where just this proper Hollywood guy.
Yes, didn't he like escape from Berlin as well? Is that so?
Yes, he emigrated to United States in 33. Yeah.
Ah, okay, yeah, just after the Nazis seized power. Gotcha.
And coincidentally, he actually worked with Howard Hawks when he moved to America. So
There
There's
you
a little
go.
connection there.
There you go. All his films are worth watching, I would say. I haven't seen them all, but the ones I have seen are excellent. Even the ones which are considered not as good on his list. I watched Fedora last year, I think it was,
Okay,
which is a
fun with
film
me.
that's pretty low down on his list, and I still really
You
enjoyed
still
it.
had fun.
And my partner M, she has very much enjoyed the ones that she's seen, and she was enjoying The Apartment as well until she fell asleep. But she was it was late. It was a late night view. It was a late
I can you not? How can you not?
night.
So those typewriters, it was just so transfixing. So yeah, another great recommend brings us to our last movie of the night. We are really switching gears here. We're get your thoughtful hat on, Alex.
As you may or may not know, Kris and I are not in the same room currently. So when we wanted to start a podcast together, we needed a platform that was able to record high quality audio online and separately, and also gave us the illusion that we may even be in a studio together.
I don't remember exactly how we came across Zencaster, but we've been using it since day one, and has never let us down. It's easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. You log in using your browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of Zen knowing Zencaster's multi layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've ever thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and distribute to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Zencaster is one of the greatest tools used at the film angle, and that's why we wanted to share the love with you.
So go to zencaster.com/pricing and use our code TheFilmAngle, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences that we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Back to the show.
So, Ali, Fear Eats the Soul, directed by Rainer Werner Fassbinder.
Yeah, I mean, I've Fassbinder is a name that's synonymous with really great auteur cinema of the 70s. I've known of this filmmaker for a long time, but again, a blind spot for myself. Was it a blind spot
Fully.
for you?
Yeah, fully uh, blind spotted with Fassbinder and his films, which is I think a shame after watching this because I really did like this one. And sometimes when you go into somebody's work and you see their most well regarded film, and then you're like, oh, I really like this. Everything else isn't as well regarded.
It's a terrible way to actually approach it, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
completely it doesn't it doesn't make you anticipate other films because you're like, oh, I've seen the best already. It's better to warm up to these things, but hey, we're doing it this way.
That's how we're doing it. That's how we're doing it.
um,
Yeah. So should we go into the plot of Ali Fear Eats the Soul?
please do.
So we have Emmy, who is a cleaning lady, and she is lonely and she is old, and and she ends up in a bar which is playing a different kind of music that she's not used to, but she's gone in, and it is a bar that is frequented by Arab immigrants within Germany. And she strikes up a friendship with a mechanic called Ali, and their relationship very quickly, I would say, develops into something that is more romantic, and it is almost a twist on the old Hollywood kind of idea of like an older man falls in love with a younger woman. This is an older lady
Hmm.
falling in love with a younger man, and it is to the kind of detriment of her neighbors, and society as a whole kind of frowns on not just the age gap, but the fact that Emmy is German and Ali is not, and he is an immigrant within this world, and how he is viewed, and how the color of his skin is viewed, and for a moment, Emmy starts receiving some of the same kind of judgments espoused onto her partner, and
Hmm.
she gets to see what it must be like living as someone who is perceived as different within society.
Yeah. This is a hard movie to watch, not in terms of how it flows as a film. I think Fassbinder does a really marvelous job. It really, from scene one, making you absorbed into this world. But it's hard to watch in the sense that, you know, this is very realistic depiction of racism in a time period that is dealing with the aftermath of some of the most terrible atrocities that ever happened in humanity, and yet we're seeing a nihilistic view of Germany at that point, still participating in that and the residual nature of that behavior. And and it's interesting. There's so many knock-on effects of that. It's worth saying that this movie is kind of a direct remake in a way of All That Heaven Lies, a movie I hadn't seen, but I know
Neither have I. Neither have I.
by Douglas Sirk. The difference this time is with All That Heaven Lies, that was more of a Hollywood sort of style of filmmaking, where it was more a class separation between the two lovers. This time it's race and age and social. It's kind of, it's got so much more kind of going on for it. Um, yeah, this is a really interesting kind of acted movie. I thought that Salim, who plays Ali, who is a Moroccan actor, we'll get into him and Fassbinder and their past and history together off camera, because it's
Yeah.
very very fascinating. But he's very fascinating. I mean, as Emmy says, he's this very beautiful, statuesque, muscular man who kind of comes in his life, and you feel like I think Emmy's kind of surprised that a man like this would fall in love with her. I juxtapose everybody else around her is like, you fall in love with a foreign guy. That's how can you do that? And but she can only feel the opposite way, where she's like, oh, but this guy is so beautiful. How has he chosen me? And it's this lens you're seeing the world through a much more innocent and non-judgmental way. She first invites him into his home into her home out of the rain, up these flights of stairs to her apartment. Her neighbors are all watching. It's starting the brewing of racist sort of tension within the apartment building. But she doesn't care. She doesn't like bat an eyelid once. She doesn't look left or right. She just invites him in, lets him sleep in in her spare bedroom that her deceased husband, used to live in, and the relationship kind of forms from there. And it's kind of really, it's great because you're watching the way the world should be in that moment. But then what interestingly, that Fassbender doesn't fall into the trap of that's the tone for the whole movie. Oh, isn't it horrible that nobody else sees you this way? We
Mm.
actually see the erosion of this relationship over time, and Emmy unfortunately, succumbs to the pressures around her and ends up participating in the behavior. And also, you know, Ali's not a perfect guy too.
No.
We see him the first 30 minutes, he's this guy. It's like, well, how is this relationship forming? Maybe they just love each other so much. But it's the stoicism in which Salim plays him as an actor. I almost thought, is this a bad performance, from Salim? He doesn't really emote much. But I think that's kind of the whole purpose of it. He's kind of this kind of breeze block soundboard for everything that kind of goes on in this
Yes, and
movie.
I think as well he has to, because he's so used to how society perceives him, he can't get angry. He can't show emotion. I think that is shown in any time there's any form of conflict. He's always like, she's a silly woman. It's worth just kind of, just staying out of this. And he's very
Mm,
much like, stay away from the trouble, get out of the drama. So I think he plays it in a way of somebody who's learned how to deal with living in this society and how to just let it pass over him, because
yes.
that is ultimately the better end for him. Uh, you know, at that time.
Yeah, you're completely right. It's the reality that he lives in. He's used to ducking and diving. They have their own segregated Arab bar that they go to, that only so they can get away from the German people and enjoy their own company, listen to their own music. And Emmy's really attracted to that too, because she has a pretty um a bad relationship with her children, not from her part. They seem to kind of have estranged her.
Mm.
They only kind of turn up whenever they want favors or money or anything. They're kind of married to, one of them is married to Fassbender's actually in this movie, and he plays a
Yes.
pretty abusive husband to one of her daughters. um I think he was just playing himself in the movie.
Yes, it does seem that way, doesn't it? We'll get
um,
into that.
so Emmy is clamoring for some humanity in her life. She's a good person.
She's a giving person as
She's a
well.
giving person too.
And I think that's why ultimately people try to warm back to her, because they realize how much she gives and they realize they can take advantage of her. So late in the later half of the film, the neighbors kind of turn their cheek to their kind of disgust at this relationship and realize actually if they're nicer they will get more things out of it. But obviously it is, with bad intentions rather than any kind of moral judgment that's
Mm.
been like, hey, maybe I should stop being racist.
Yeah, there's a part of that too. But did you think that there's different lenses? There's the shopkeeper who turns away Ali from serving him in the shop. She sticks up for him there. There's the women in her workplace who, whenever they find out that she's in a relationship with a man from Morocco, they completely ostracize her in the workplace. There's the women living in her apartment. They wanted the landlord to kick her out. She's got all these forces against her. But do you think that their disinterest in the whole event later on, and they kind of give in to their relationship, do you think that comes from a place of actual acceptance, or is it just that they're bored and they want to move on to the next thing that they can be angry and annoyed at? Is this horrible nihilistic view of our human nature that we all like to, the worst of us like to complain about things whenever there's a new woman that comes into their workplace? They soon kind of get bored of Emmy's distraction of her relationship and move on to bully the next person he's involved in the work line. I think there's something to say on a social commentary about that as well. Our base behaviors as human beings.
Yes, and also I guess as well to just kind of hate anything new is
Yeah,
kind of a big thing there as well.
yeah, and I think we're 30 odd years after 1945, the end of the Second World War, but there is still that there's mentions of Hitler in this movie. There's mentions of the Nazi Party. Emmy even says it to Ali, like my father was a member of the party, and so was I.
Yeah, she is
Y-
an ex-Nazi, and for her, was it her birthday? They go to Hitler's favorite restaurant.
yeah, yeah, and order caviar. Yeah,
Yeah, really interesting that she's like, hey, have you ever heard
it
of
was an
this guy
Italian
Hitler?
restaurant too.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And it almost shows her kind of what would you call it, naivety to the fact that
She is
somebody
very
like
naive.
she almost like semi idolizes Hitler without kind of realizing that he would also hate her husband.
Yeah, that naivety stretches into the relationship between them and her getting married to Ali. I mean, you know, I like to think I would live in a world where people can fall in love with whoever they want to, and social boundaries and age boundaries didn't exist. But in the back of our minds as the viewer, Ali he is so opposite to everything that Emmy is in her background, and we don't get an insight into his life outside of what she knows him to be. But whenever we know that there's something else going on, and he's a human being that kind of has these issues too. A lot of movies about racism and how we treat people of different ethnicities wrongly are usually so concerned with trying to make these people angelic that they are complete victims, that they are completely at odds with everything that's going on around them, and that they need to be protected, and that the movie needs to give them some sort of redemption or solace. But this movie is not afraid to say that, but also to see Ali as a person who makes mistakes too and has issues. And I think that's really fascinating. You got all these multiple layers going on within like an hour and a half of movie. Things move very, very quickly, but we get this whole kaleidoscope of this relationship and who these people are behind and how it unravels. And it's hard to watch. It's the tension in this film is kind of the thing that stuck with me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I found it really kind of like a very emotionally mature film about the subject of kind of racism and societal racism, and yeah, I was really moved by it. And I think it's interesting when you look back into Fassbinder's history with theatre and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of kind of theatrical elements to this, very stagey elements to this.
Sure.
But yeah, it's yeah, a really effective, emotionally effective film, and surprisingly enough, was filmed in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's insane. That's insane.
And Fassbinder was known for just kind of like churning out films like this. Just
Did he make
it's
he died at the age of 37, but he made like 40 movies
yeah.
up
It
until
might
that point?
was it? I think he might have been younger. I feel like he wasn't. I feel like he was like early 30s.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I read 37 somewhere, but yeah, I mean, regardless, that would still be really, really young. But
Yeah, I mean he died of an overdose of was it cocaine and barbiturates? Which is barbiturates is how Marilyn Monroe died, isn't it?
hmm,
But yeah, no, I mean, I might be wrong. I'm having a quick look, but I'm scrolling through his massive film list, just because he is.
it is crazy. And this movie was originally conceptualized as an experimental piece and then adapted into like a feature film. So it was never really like, I know it's kind of his crowning jewel, apparently, but
Yeah,
apparently a lot of his films are worth catching up with too.
yeah. He was 37, Chris. Sorry to question you on
Oh,
that one.
that's okay. That's okay.
Um,
Forgiven.
but yeah, really very interesting director, and one that I hadn't really read about the kind of background of, and I guess I'm kind of glad I didn't before I watched this film, because I definitely might have changed my view. I mean, he was a very, very violent person who had very kind of violent relationships with the people he was with, and some of those people, and well, I say some, a lot of them ended up being in his film. So men and women, a lot of the ones you'll see in his films have been in a relationship with Fassbinder, including, Ali himself. Is it Benadir Salim?
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you, Chris.
But call him Ben.
We'll call him Ben. No, let's not call him Ben. El Hedi Ben Salim, who it was diarized, I guess, that him and Fassbinder had a very, very tumultuous relationship where they used to get drunk and beat each other up. And Salim left one day, and he went to a nightclub in Berlin and stabbed 3 people. Thankfully, none of them died, but he had to end up being smuggled out of Germany by Fassbinder and some other people into France, where he was then consequently arrested for another crime, and ended up taking his own life in a prison cell, to which Fassbinder knew nothing of of his death until close to his own, which is very kind of emotionally traumatic, I imagine.
Yeah. It is a bit of a bummer.
The kind of background to this film is as crazy as, like, you could make a film about this. Like, you could make a film about the behind the scenes of kind of Fassbinder and Salim himself. I mean, Fassbinder had publicly beat one of his girlfriends almost to death in the street. Like, he didn't shy away from this kind of violence, unfortunately. So to have such a kind of emotionally mature and interesting film about this topic from somebody who, by all accounts, doesn't sound like a very nice person at all.
Does it for you as as a cinephile, as a fan of film, does it taint your perception of a movie whenever someone behind it? This is the age old argument and or debate to be had.
It makes me think, like, having watched this film, it makes me go, okay, people are very complicated. People are very, very complicated. But yeah, I think I can separate it enough and be like, this is a really kind of lovely, sweet, melancholic.
You learned everything
film.
after the fact, right?
Pretty much,
After you'd
yeah.
seen it. Same for me. I remember you texted me before the movie and said, "Don't read up anything about the behind the scenes of this
That's
or
because I
behind.
wanted to tell you on the podcast.
Well, whenever you text me something like that, curiosity gets the better of a human being. Like I said, we're all complex. I'm just
Yeah,
not
that's
that
fair enough.
complex.
Yeah, bit mad to kind of watch or kind of read about the star of this film and obviously the
Mhm.
director of this
But
film and how
there's
complicated
suggestions
their own
though.
lives are.
You can't justify the behavior of Salim in reality. It's never okay to beat people up or stab people in public. um,
Never.
at any counts. But there's a suggestion in there that a lot of the the violence in these two people's lives were direct sort of residual byproducts of racial indecency in our society and inequality and frustration at that, and that kind of actually lends itself to the movie a little bit. I actually find afterwards, not that we should be looking for events like that to happen to help aid our viewing experiences, but I thought there's some interesting subtext in there that kind of made Ali even more potent for me in some weird, fucked up way.
Mm. Yeah, like it added to the complications
Yeah, I
of
think wasn't it
complex
Salim had like
of a
three
complex
kids
human.
back in Morocco
Mm.
that he like completely neglected. He left with them. He brought one of them over with him to actually live with him in Fassbinder, and the kid was neglected, and it was a terrible environment where they were all just doing drugs and drinking every night. So and then there's all this sort of geographical. Logistical nightmarish issues surrounding these human beings and their
Mm.
art, and sometimes art comes out of the most frustrating, dire situations, and we have to kind of accept that sometimes, to reach a potency in humanity at a certain grasp that others who live a more normal life wouldn't be able to grasp at, and we have to accept that it comes from a place of pain sometimes.
Yeah.
But don't stab people. Don't stab
Don't
people.
stab people.
Don't
Don't
inflict that
stab
pain on
people.
other people.
I didn't read much on Bridget Mira, who plays Emmy. So I can only
She's amazing in
presume
this
that
movie,
she's
can I
lovely.
say? She's
I can
great.
only presume she's lovely. Yeah, apparently, a lot of people don't think she is good in this film.
Really? Her
Yeah,
eyes are like portals to another dimension.
yeah. Apparently, one of the big critiques of this movie is her performance.
I would say it's the strongest performance in the movie, personally. I think she's so sympathetic, and I think she under it's a melodrama in a way, her performance, but
Oh,
her
it is. Yeah.
physicality is so internal. She's like this old sparrow, she kind of has this sort of Edith Piaf sort of like way of holding herself, but she's fragile and strong, and I find her really believable. I felt the age of time within her. I could see her living in this apartment. I could see the life she had with her husband before, the strained relationship with her kids, and her this real love and admiration for this man that she's fallen in love with. I completely, and the toil she deals with, I completely thought was a transportive performance.
Mm.
I don't see the complaint. I actually don't even see it at
No,
all.
no, I agree. I agree. Though I do think El Hedi Ben Salim had the best performance. I love the broken English. I love
The broken English is
and I
good.
really kind of read into the complexity of his kind of stoicism. Um, I don't know, and yeah, I don't know. He was excellent. I thought it was really good.
He was excellent. I think
Mm.
there's this one bit with him that really stood out for me on a final point here was whenever he's obviously having a secret relationship with the woman at the bar who makes him the couscous that he really likes, and Emmy doesn't make him couscous. In fact, Emmy
Yeah,
hates couscous.
yes, couscous equals sex.
In this guy's world, it really does. Uh, so yeah, him and Emmy are falling out. Their relationship is unraveling, and he goes back to the woman at the bar. Has samples the couscous, but there,
So to speak.
there's this sort of really kind of nightmarish but beautiful shot that Fassbinder has of them going to bed with each other, where the woman's lying on the bed and Celine or Ali walks towards her, and you feel where the scene's going. It's going to be this big sort of lustful exchange, but he kind of just lays his body on top of her in the distance, and instead of going into like into pornographic territory where we start to see these two having sex, his body is just on top of hers and it rests there for like 10 seconds, and it almost seemed like a child who needed to be sort of looked after or was in pain. He just kind of lays his body on top of her, and in a way that's sort of, you know, looking for some sort of embrace or some sort of like it's going to be okay. I just
Oh,
thought that was quite powerful in a way. It felt like he wasn't doing it out of lust. It felt like he was doing it you know, out of fear and panic, and that he needed to be told it was all right. I've read something into that. The physicality of that was just so purposeful and so into tune with what he is doing in terms of his stoicism, that there had to be more to that. And I'm interested to read more into it in the future, but
oh, is that not how you do it?
you just stay there like a plank. You just plank.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't
You
do
watched,
that.
Alex, didn't you go to the cinema? You went to the Watershed in Bristol today to see a movie called How to Have Sex. I thought you would know all about this by now.
All right, I'm just gonna say now. I had many jokes written, ready to go about the film How to Have Sex. They're all out the window because it's a very serious film and you cannot joke about it. I cannot joke about it. Spoiler warning for a future episode. I really liked it and I'm looking forward to when I can talk to you about it, Chris. But it's not a funny film. It's not to be joked about.
No, I did see a Q&A with the director where she said that like a lot of people came up to her after the movie and said they were disappointed that it wasn't a how-to guide of how to have sex. So the biggest complaint she's had in the film was just like, if you're looking for tips, it's not the movie for you.
Yeah, to be honest, there's a lot in it of like what not to do.
Oh, sure,
So
sure.
maybe you could swing it in a different way. But yeah, it's not a film. As much as I would love to joke about the title some more with you, it is it's a very serious film. It's
Your
not.
face just went from like complete goofball to that a kid who got caught in class and just try.
It was a really interesting going up to the ticket office and being like, "Can I have one ticket to see How to Have Sex, please?"
Certainly, sir.
Not something I thought I'd say. But no, it is. But it is a brilliant film. It is brilliant.
Like
We've
Ali Fear Eats the Soul.
Yes, yeah, we are gone off topic there. But a future episode, whenever you get around to watching How to Have Sex, which you
It's a big
should.
movie. It's a big well, it's a small movie, but it's doing the rounds pretty well at the minute. I think
Yeah.
that's getting a lot of good attention.
Would you go watch it at the Plymouth Arts Centre if it comes, or is it going to be too
Yeah,
late? They sometimes get things a little late.
there's a
Don't they?
couple of things I'm booked into to see there that I don't know if I'll get round to it, but I will definitely be catching up with it, before like awards season next year.
Yeah.
Not that it's going to be showing up in the Oscars. I know it's never going to. I know that for a fact.
Ah,
But
you don't know. This year's very strange because of the strikes and things being moved around. You
it's,
never
it's
know.
just what is the next Oscars going to be like?
I don't know. Oh, strike officially ends today.
Happy Strike End Day, guys.
Yeah, the actors have come to some form of agreement.
We'll celebrate tomorrow with the Marvels.
Don't.
I mean,
I don't know when
yeah.
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
get
I
to
hope it's
see
good.
that one.
I hope it's good.
Are you going to cinema to see the Marvels?
No.
I will because I've not missed one at the cinema, and no,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not
if I
gonna-
was if I was over there with you, like I always have to drag. Lauren goes to see everything with me, but I always have to drag her to the Marvel movies.
Oh,
So
interesting. Yeah,
I'm not going to put in the legwork just for this one. It's just
yeah. It's short though. It's short.
it's an hour and 45. That
Yeah,
can tell you
there's
something.
a
in
lot going
itself.
on in these next couple of weeks. Hopefully, I'll get a chance to watch it at some point, and if I do, I will bring my review back to here.
Very good. But that's 3 BFI movies wrapped up and done today.
Yes, and a little teaser for How to Have Sex for you.
Is that 3 thumbs up for like all 3 of them?
Yes,
Potemkin, you're sort of like a mid thumb.
yes,
Mid to
yeah.
up?
Mid up.
Okay, so we got like add all our thumbs. It adds to 5.5 out of 6.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
yeah.
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 What
And I
movie
just
would you
wanna say-
recommend to like most listeners, like
Most
what's
listeners, I definitely go for The Apartment because it's a lot of fun. However, it wasn't my blind spot. So if I was to only go out to the
but
two blind spots,
it was worth recapturing because
it
you gave it
was.
an extra half star than you did on your letterbox
It's
last
true.
time, so it was
It's
worth
true.
it.
It was worth it. And I watched on the projector, and it was really
Oh,
nice. It was really
lovely.
nice on the projector.
I haven't seen this projector yet because I'm not.
It's like a shitty projector from Amazon, but old movies on it because the
Yeah.
quality doesn't suffer too much with an old movie.
Because
Like
I guess
I
when you would
wouldn't
have
watch
seen
like
these in like 1960, they would have looked like that probably.
yeah, I wouldn't watch like a 4K film on it. I mean, it wouldn't be able to anyway. But like a nice old movie,
Yeah,
black and
Endgame
white.
on your projector.
Yeah, like and like the sound comes out the speaker on the projector, and it is a pretty good speaker. It's not awful, but like it is just one speaker.
Mhm.
So it's I pick and choose the films I watch, but an old film at night, cuddled up in bed.
Sounds like a recipe for sleep.
I don't sleep during films. It's great. I don't think I've ever once fallen asleep to a film.
I envy that.
I find
Maybe
it very
you don't.
difficult.
You obviously do not work hard enough.
Not right now.
oh, sorry, I didn't realize that. that was a low blow.
Low blow, man. Kick a guy when he's down.
Being Spider-Man is pretty hard, right? In your spare time, playing Spider-Man 2.
It is true. It is true.
So the weight of a hero.
I finished it today. I finished
Did you?
Spider-Man 2 today. Yes. Not game of the year, but it is good. It is good. It's good fun.
It's every time I ever see a clip of somebody saying Spider-Man 2 Game of the Year, it's just footage of him swinging for the city. It's like, that's great. What else is there?
Yeah. Oh man, the singing is the best part. It is such a glorious way to go around New York. But we are going into major derailment here.
Excuse me, Alex. Let's not like beat around the bush here. Most people listening to this are more likely to have played Spider-Man 2 than they will to ever see any of these movies.
You mean not everybody's seen Ali Fear Eats the Soul?
My mum and dad have, but like they watch that every week. So
I would recommend it. All right, yeah, Spider-Man 2. It's fun. It's really good, and I love Spider-Man. We've gone on about it before. I have my own Spider-Man costume. It's a good game. I just
love the Spider-Man costume.
I know you do. It's just it's not as I think the first was better. I think the first game was better. There are certain mechanics of the second game which are much better. But story wise, I think I was more involved in the first, but I do love the fact that you can play as Miles Morales in this one as well. And the web wings are a revolution. Web wings. The web wings are a revolution.
You heard it here. Thumbs up for Spider-Man 2, reviewed by Alex.
But not game of the year, all right, guys? Everyone needs to calm down. It's not that good. Like, it's a good game, but it's not that good.
What is game of the year?
I don't know. I don't play many games. You should probably say what game of the year is. I really like Jedi Survivor. I thought that was great.
I'd be much more... Obviously, I'll end up playing it. I'm much more interested in that.
Yes. Well, you played it. You played a bit of it at mine.
I can't play Spider-Man 2 because I got an Xbox.
Yeah, loser.
Oh, come on. That's schoolyard juvenile talk here.
I know. GTA 6 gets the first trailer in December.
Yeah, it'll be a teaser. But like Red Dead 2 had a teaser, and then you didn't see anything for like a year. And then
games are a bit annoying at that, aren't they? They like they'll give you a trailer, and then it's like, and the release date's in 2026.
Yeah, it'll be just like environments you'll see and stuff. But we'll be there.
We'll be there
in 2028.
2028, and then only for every 2 years after you'll get a remaster of the same game.
Oh yeah, it's coming to your fridge soon. All right, I think we ran out of show there.
Yes, well, we are talking about video games now, so sorry to turn the film angle into the video game angle, but there we are. So yeah, go follow us on Instagram, go follow us on TikTok at The Film Angle, and we will be back next week reviewing some more films for you to be decided, but potentially David Fincher's The Killer, so see you next week for that. But that's been the Film Angle for this week. I'm Alex.
And I'm Kris.
Goodbye and good night.
See you later. Auf Wiedersehen.